definitions. Okay, definitions in the sense CI, and Jenkins, what we do with Jenkins, and what are all the parameters that we use in Jenkins. Okay, so basically, before moving into Jenkins, so we need to understand CI and CD. Okay, CI represents continuous integration. Okay, and CD represents continuous deployment. Before moving into, anybody has any questions and any doubts, any clarification that you want on any tool? Krishna HV.
Yes, sir. This is my first class. Today only I have to join.
Okay, you joined yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Sandeep has been added you.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay. Are you aware of Git, Linux, and script, shell script?
Yeah. I know some basic knowledge in Git and Linux and Shell.
Okay. Are you working somewhere?
No, no. I have to done some course in micro degree.
Okay. Hmm. Okay. Fine then. Uh, Anybody has any questions and any doubts? Vinay Chikeri.
Hi sir, good morning sir.
Good morning. Have you done the complete assignment?
ಸರ್ ಅದು ಗಿಟ್ ಅಸೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅಸೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 40 ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ 20 ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಇವತ್ತು ಮುಗಿಸಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ಅಲ್ಲ ರೀ, ನಿಮಗೆ 2 days ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಏನು ನಿಮ್ದು?
ಸರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ನಂದು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನಿನ್ನೆ ವರ್ಕ್ ಇತ್ತು, ನನಗೆ ಸಂಡೇನೂ ವರ್ಕ್ ಇತ್ತು, ನನಗೆ ಸಂಡೇ ಸರ್.
ಅಲ್ಲ ರೀ, ವರ್ಕ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ರೀ. ಇನ್ನು ಈ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾವಾಗ?
ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಇವತ್ತು, ಕಲ್ತೀವಿ ಇವತ್ತು.
ರೀ, ನೀವು ರೀಸನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಕೂತ್ರೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ರೀ. ಯಾವಾಗ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ರೀಸನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರ್ತೀರ ನೀವು. ಈ ಥರ ಇದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ವಿನಯ್. ಟೆಲ್ ಮಿ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗಿಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಶ್?
ಸರ್ ಇನ್ನೂ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್, ಗಿಟ್ ಅಸೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೆಪ್.
ನೀವು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ? ನಿಮಗೆ 2 ದಿನ ಅಲ್ಲ, 1 ವಾರ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಇದೇ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ನಿಮ್ಮದು. ಯು ಆರ್
ಇಲ್ಲ
ನಾಟ್
ಸರ್,
ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಎಸ್ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್. ಯು ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಎಸ್ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್.
ನೋ ಸರ್, ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನೀವು ರಾತ್ರಿ 1 ಗಂಟೆ ತನಕ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದು ಗಿಟ್
ರೀ,
ಅಸೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್
ನೀವು 1 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೆ ಕೂರಿ, 3 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೆ
ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
ಕೂರಿ ರೀ. ನನಗೆ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ ನೀವು.
ಓಕೆ.
ಟೆಲ್ ಮಿ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗಿಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಶ್? ರೀ, ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ಸರ್ನ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ರೀ, ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ಲಿ. ನೀವು ಇದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಲೀವ್ ದ ಗ್ರೂಪ್, ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಲೀವ್ ದಿಸ್. ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದರೆ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೀವು ಕಂಪ್ನಿ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆದಾಗ ನೀವು ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ರೀ. ಸೇಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಸೇಮ್ ರೀಸನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರ ನೀವು. ಟಾಸ್ಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಡೇ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಇಫ್ ದೇ ಗಿವನ್ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಟು ಯು ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಟೆಲ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ. ಇದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಯುವರ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್. Okay, so is my screen visible for everybody? Okay, fine then. Let's start with CI and CD. Okay, so CI is basically, as I told, continuous integration. Let's get the okay. So CI represents the continuous integration. So what is this CI? So let's understand CI and CD. Okay, so it is a basically, as I told, continuous integration. It is used to integrate changes from development team continuously. Development team in the sense dev environment. Okay, so integrate the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. So we don't need any manual intervention. We want the automated system, right? So everybody wants the automated system, and they wanted the quick response, quick feedback for their changes. Quick response in the sense, suppose if the developer has written a code, he wants to check immediately through the pipeline, not manually. That we call it as CI. Okay, so understand the definition clearly. It is used to integrate the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. Okay, and to keep quick feedback to developers for the changes. Quick feedback ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸಪೋಸ್ ಇವಾಗ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ನೋ ದ ಚೇಂಜಸ್, right? Suppose if the build success, right, that we call it as quick feedback. Suppose if developer has written some test cases that he wants to run some tests through the pipeline. Quick feedback in the sense build results either failure or the either green, either success or unstable. So that we call it as like CI, continuous integration. Okay, so CI represents, okay, so integrate the changes, integrate the changes from integrate the changes from development team continuously without, let's give the definition, without manual intervention, and to give, okay, to give or to keep quick feedback, quick feedback to quick feedback to developers for their changes. Okay, so that we call it as CI. CI, continuous integration. Integrate the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. Okay, we no need to go with the manual effort again. We want the automated system. That system we call it as CI, continuous integration. Integrate the changes from development team to test their changes without manual intervention, and to keep the quick feedback to developers for their changes. Okay, so how it works, let's give a snippet here. Let's give the diagrammatic representation. So let's say this is a developer environment. Okay, developer has created a code. Okay, he wants to build and he wants to push it. Okay, so he will push it to GitLab or GitHub, right? The code where he keeps, right? So he will push it to GitLab or GitHub. So as soon as he pushed it to GitLab, the build will automatically triggers. Okay, and even the logs we can see in pipeline builds will get triggered in Jenkins. Okay, this is the developer workspace. You were able to understand this flow. So developer workspace either with his system or might be in his laptop. He developed his code. He wanted to keep the code. He'll do branch out, and from his feature branch, he wanted to push it to it to remote. And once he pushed GitLab or GitHub, you might see the notification change in GitLab, right? So that build, we will see it in Jenkins. Okay, this automation, this configuration, we'll do it later. But the flow from continuous integration is this only to understand CI. Okay, so CI represents integrates the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. Okay, continuously in the sense, suppose this is the feature he built for first feature, and suppose if you want to build a pipeline or to push it or to check his changes for the second, again he wants to push the same. That's how the CI works. Okay, we don't need. Okay, so there is no manual effort required here. That's how we call it as CI, continuous integration. Okay, and similarly we also have CD. Okay, so CD represents continuous deployment. Okay, so I'll give a continuous deployment. Okay, so what this CD represents, continuous deployment. So what this continuous deployment refers, so basically each changes from the dev team. Okay, so CD represents, okay, so CD represents each change, means each changes from his code, each changes or each change from dev team should build, okay, should build through CI/CD pipeline and should be deployed to test servers to test the changes continuously. Okay, suppose if he built through Jenkins, suppose he wanted to test something. Okay, that for testing purpose we will be having some test servers. Okay, so that test servers to be configured and built to be deployed to test servers, that we call it as CD. CD means deploy. Deploy means we are dumping something, we are we are adding it something to the servers. Okay, so server, let's say there is a server A. Okay, and this server B, diamond. Okay, server B. Okay, so this is server A and this is server B, and we are dumping from A to B. We call it as deploy. Simple. Okay, so deploy, you understand this way, we are dumping from A to B. Okay, A environment to the B environment. Okay, similarly in CD deployment, each change from the dev team. Okay, so whatever the changes which the developer built should build and should be deployed to test servers to test their changes continuously. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ? ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಡಂಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಒಂದು ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಡಂಪ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿ ಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಐ ಆಮ್ ಆಡಿಬಲ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ಲಿ? ಆರ್ ಯು ಗೈಸ್ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಯರ್?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so CD represents each change. Okay, each change from the dev team should build and should build and should be deployed to test servers to test their changes, continuously. Okay, so this we call it as CD, continuous deployment, continuous integration, and continuous deployment, CI and CD. Make sure that these definitions are able to understand. So whenever we called, see, this CI and CD we use in other tools as well, like Docker, and even we use in Kubernetes. And going forward, we discuss a lot of tools here, right? Some other tools. So when I say deploy, you need to understand we're dumping something in them. Okay. And now, soon after the CI and CD, let's go to Jenkins. Okay, what is this Jenkins we do? What this Jenkins works in the current technology. So why we need to use this Jenkins? So what is the benefit of using of Jenkins as a tool? Right? Let's learn about this. Okay, so Jenkins is basically the framework in the sense, so it provides the platform to build our source code. Okay, source code might be, then source code either Java or Python or your C++, embedded C, correct? We have discussed about our build tools, correct? For a build tool, which is the build tool for C?
CMake.
Shabazz. Shabazz.
Yes, sir.
Which is the build tool for C?
See.
Hmm. Which is the build tool for CMake? Sorry, C code. Have you
Yes,
attended the session?
Java. Yes, sir. I'll attend it.
Hmm. Which is the build tool for C?
C, C and C, C. Java, sir.
Java build tool. Which is the build tool for Java? ಸೆಷನ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆ ಇವತ್ತು?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಅವತ್ತು ಅರ್ಥ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಅದು ಇದು ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ರಿವೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನು.
ರಿವೈಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ನಾನು ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ನೀನು ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅದೇ ಹೇಳೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಗೆ. ಐ ವಾಸ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಯುವರ್ ಡೌಟ್ಸ್, ರೈಟ್?
ಸರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸರ್.
ರಿವೈಸ್ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್, ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್? Which is the build tool for Java? Tell me. Open your notes and tell me which is the build tool for Java. ಈ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೇಕ್ರಿ. ಡೌಟ್ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ರೀ ಇಲ್ಲಿ.
ಸರ್, ಡೌಟ್ ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ.
Tell me, open your notes. Tell
Yes,
me
sir.
which is the build tool for Java.
1 minute ಸರ್, ಜಸ್ಟ್
ನೀವು ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಟು ಗೈಡ್ ಫರ್ದರ್.
May 1, sir.
Which is the build tool for C?
CMake, sir.
What you told?
Java, sir.
Then ಈ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ರಿವೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ, ಸಿ, ನೀವು ಸೆಷನ್ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರು ಆಗದೇ ಇದ್ರು ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಲರ್ನ್ that you should be prepared for next session.
Yes, sir.
Reasons are not allowed here. Interest illa ant helidre you can leave. No force here. But if you are here, you need to answer the question and you need to explain that. This is for everybody. Okay, let's move to Jenkins. So Jenkins is basically the framework, so which is used to integrate the changes from development team continuously. So what Jenkins will do, it's a framework. So it provides platform to build our source code, right? So source code in the sense, so it will help us to build C, it will help us to build embedded C, it will help us to build our C++ code, and it will help us to build our Java, .NET, Python, and we can also run our shell script through Jenkins. Okay, so it's a platform. Okay, say like it's a Jenkins here. It's a platform. It provides the platform to execute, to build our code. Okay, so here we generate a build, right? We generate a build here from Jenkins, and that build we will deploy to test servers. Okay, so we'll go later for deployment. We'll be in Jenkins only. So here in Jenkins, it's a platform. It will help us to build the source code, executes the tasks. Okay, the framework. So that we call it as Jenkins. So without Jenkins, we cannot do CI and CD. So there are a lot of tools in market. Like we can also use GitLab CI. We can also use GitHub Actions, and also for Azure ADO, and even Orgo CD are the CI CD tools that we use in market. Okay, currently we're gonna learn for Jenkins. Okay, clear for this everybody? I'll give a definition. Jenkins is a, see, ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಕೇಳಿ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಡೌಟ್ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೀವು ಹೋಗೋದೆಲ್ಲ ಯೂಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. Okay, so what I was explaining, Jenkins is basically the framework. It will help us to build the source code, deploy the source code, deploy the build to the test servers. It will do both CI and CD. That is the reason. So above, before moving into Jenkins, we need to understand CI and CD. Okay, so Jenkins is basically the framework, so which is used to, okay, which is used to integrate the changes, from development team continuously, okay, integrate the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. Okay, so without manual effort, we can also build and integrate the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. Without manual effort, we can get our build the code and deploy build to the test servers. So that we call it as Jenkins. Okay, so you understood now. See, we do CI and CD both in Jenkins. Okay, so it's basically the framework. Okay, clear for this? Any questions on this? Anybody has any doubts here? Any questions and any doubts? Okay, so soon after this, so we use the term called Jenkins master and Jenkins slave. Okay, so let me understand what is this Jenkins master and Jenkins slave, because before we start a Jenkins CI/CD, so we need to understand some terms, and so what this Jenkins we do and what we have in Jenkins, right? So we have a Jenkins master, so that has some functions, right? That, let's understand what is this Jenkins master will do and what the agent will do in Jenkins. Okay, so I'm gonna give Jenkins master. So Jenkins master is basically, okay, so on which server the Jenkins is installed, that we call it as Jenkins master. So where we install a Jenkins, Jenkins is basically the build, okay, build system, the package. Okay, let's say package manager, that package where we install in any of the server. Okay, so we need the server here to install a Jenkins. Okay, let's install it later. Okay, before installing it, we need to understand some of the uh, terminology, right? That we call it as Jenkins master. So Jenkins master is basically where we install a Jenkins server. Okay, where we installed the Jenkins, that we call it as Jenkins master. Okay, so it has some responsibilities, including responsibilities in the sense it has some tasks to do it in Jenkins platform. Okay, so Jenkins master defines on which server and which server Jenkins is installed. On which server the Jenkins is installed, called Jenkins master. Okay, so Jenkins master has some, also we call it as controller. Jenkins controller, also we call it as Jenkins master or Jenkins controller. Okay, so it is the main Jenkins server. It's the main Jenkins server. So it has, okay, so its responsibilities, includes below. So there are a list of tasks which handled by Jenkins master or Jenkins controller. Okay, let's understand what this Jenkins master will do in. See, Jenkins master is nothing but your server itself. Okay, so where we install a Jenkins. Okay, so ನೀವು Jenkins package ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ Jenkins master ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, or the Jenkins controller. Okay, so it has some list of tasks. Okay, it has some list of responsibilities. ಅದು Jenkins ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ, let's talk about that list of responsibilities from Jenkins master. So Jenkins master, your server itself is your Jenkins master. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು Jenkins ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ನೀವು ಸರ್ವರ್ ಏನು ಲಾಗಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ ಆ ಸರ್ವರ್ ಮೇಲೆನೆ ನಾವು Jenkins ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಲ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. So okay, it has some responsibilities. Okay, so what are those responsibilities? Managing the overall Jenkins environment. Okay, so managing the overall Jenkins environment. ENV ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, managing the overall Jenkins environment. Yes. Okay, second one, providing the user interface. Okay, providing the user interface means what? User interface in the sense UI, correct? User interface and REST API. Anybody know API here? API calls, anybody aware of API? Okay, so what Jenkins will provide in second point, it provides the user interface, means UI. So basically similar to your GitLab, right? It also provides the UI. Similarly, Jenkins also will provide UI to it guides user to move forward. Basically it provides the user interface. So when we see the UI, we can move forward to work with Jenkins and also with the REST API. Jenkins is also having its own API. It's basically the open source too. Suppose if you want to modify, you can modify it. So why we call it is as open source ಅಂತ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, Jenkins requirement nim project ge, suppose if you want to modify some code changes, you can customize it. That is the reason we call it as open source. Okay, suppose ಇವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್, ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಸೇ ಯು ಆರ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಜಾವಾ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಜಾವಾ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಜಾವಾ ಬೇಸ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವೇನಾದರೂ ಕೋಡ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ನೀವು CI/CD ಪೈಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, CI/CD ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಸ್ಟಮೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. Okay, that is the reason we call it as open source. It is open to everybody. So their knowledge on Groovy, okay, Jenkins works on Java and Groovy. Okay, Jenkins works on basically on the Java. Okay, Java should be installed in the server to work in Jenkins. Okay, I'll install it. I'll show how to install and what are all the dependencies to install Jenkins. Okay, I'll show in further sessions. No worries on this. But it's a open source. It provides the user interface for the user to guide end to end. Okay, ನೀವು ಯು ಐ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. Okay, so that is handled by Jenkins controller. Clear for this, everybody? Okay, and the third point, storing the configurations of jobs and plugins. Storing the configuration of just a minute, guys. Sorry. So storing the configuration of jobs and plugins. Okay, so we use some plugins in Jenkins. So, okay, plugins are the tasks which we able to execute set. Okay, now in task execute ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ Jenkins ಅಲ್ಲಿ there are a set of plugins. ಆ plugins install ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ you will be succeeded with configuring Jenkins. Okay, plugins use ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. I'll explain that in further session. So what are all the plugins that we use and how to install plugins and how to restart once we install a plugin. Okay, so storing the configuration of jobs. Okay, suppose if you configured some job, it will store in the Jenkins master itself. I will show where it stores the jobs. Okay, so it will also store the configuration of jobs and plugins as well. Okay, so fourth point, scheduling the build jobs. Okay, so what is cron job? Vinay Chikeri. What is scheduler? What is cron job? Vinay Chikeri. I'm audible.
Sir, it's audible, sir.
Hmm.
Sir, CHOWN, right?
Sorry, what happened?
Sir, are you asking about the cron tab or?
Cron tab only I'm asking. Cron tab only I'm asking. Are you aware of cron tab? ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ರೀ, ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ವಾ? ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆಯೋ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ? Okay, so basically Jenkins master will also do the scheduling build jobs. Scheduling in the sense we can also set the cron tab in Jenkins. Okay, so whatever we learned, we can run our Linux command, we can set our cron tab. Go on mute, Vinay Chikeri. We can set our cron tab in Jenkins, we can execute our shell script in Jenkins, we can configure Git in Jenkins. That's what scheduling build jobs, in the sense we can also schedule the Jenkins job in the Jenkins itself, which is managed by Jenkins controller. Okay, that is the reason we need to understand cron tab in Linux, right? Similarly, we can also do it in Jenkins, right? That is the reason we have practiced some of the cron tabs with syntax, right? So let's configure one by one. Okay, to configure that we need to understand these concepts, what Jenkins master will do. Okay, and the fifth point, okay, so delegating builds jobs to available agents if needed. Okay, so delegating build jobs to available agents if required. Okay, so what this delegating build jobs to available agents if required means, it will assign a particular job to the available agents. Okay, Now agents ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Agents in the sense Jenkins also we can create Jenkins slave or agents we call it as. Okay, agents are help us to build the job, build the source code in Jenkins platform itself. Okay, I'll explain this agents, what is agents and what we do with agents. Okay, so agents through we can also build the jobs. Okay, and similarly the sixth point, monitoring agents and their availability. Monitoring agents and their availability. Okay, so monitoring agents, suppose if your CPUs exceeds more than the threshold that we had set, so it also monitors and their availability. It should check the agent availability that monitored through Jenkins master or the Jenkins controller. Okay, so all these 6 tasks which is managed by, the responsibilities are done by Jenkins master. Okay, Jenkins master in the sense, so on which server Jenkins is installed, Jenkins package is installed, that we call it as Jenkins master. So below is the task which is managed by Jenkins controller. Okay, now let's move to the next concept, that is Jenkins slave or node. Jenkins slave or node, or also we call it as agent, Jenkins agent. Okay, so we use the terminology in going forward in this Jenkins itself. Okay, Jenkins slave or node or agent. Okay, so the Jenkins slave or agent. Okay, so the slave or agent is a operator machine. Okay, it's a machine basically, it's a server. Okay, configure to build the jobs from master. Okay, so it is basically the machine or the server. It will help us to build the jobs from master. Okay, slave is basically we need to connect this to the master, then only we're able to build the job. It is a server itself, but we need to connect to the Jenkins master or the Jenkins controller. Okay, and distribute the load to the different server. We can also distribute the load. Suppose if you want to run, let's say there are two projects, project ಇದೆ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Okay, the one, let's say the first project is C and the second project is Java, and both the project you can build using agent, using this Jenkins slave. Okay, ಈ Jenkins slave or agent a node use ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು you can also build both the project parallelly. Okay, means distribute the load to a different server, also to run the specific job on a specific server. Okay, so as I told, C project can build parallelly in one, and the Java project can build in another platform. So that we call it as agent or Jenkins slave or a node. Okay, I'll give a definition. The slave or agent is a separate machine. Okay, so is a separate machine configured to build the jobs from the master and distribute the loads to different servers, also to run the specific job on a specific server. Okay, so ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ ಇದು. ಸೊ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಅವ್ರ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ನೋಡ್ ಆರ್ ಏಜೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸಿ ಬೇಸಿಕಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ machine which we need to connect to the Jenkins controller to run the job. Okay, so Jenkins controller ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳು ಅಂದ್ರೆ like say like you have a Jenkins controller that is installed with Jenkins. Okay, so say suppose let's remove this everything. Okay, so I'll keep this way. Say like you have your Jenkins slave here. Okay, slave in the sense your server itself, your machine. Okay, so let's say it's a slave. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವೇನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದನ್ನ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲರ್ ಮಾಸ್ಟರಿಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ನಾನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ವಿ ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಟು ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲರ್ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಟು ರನ್ ದ ಜಾಬ್. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಎಸ್ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಆರ್ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ನೋಡ್ ಆರ್ ಏಜೆಂಟ್. ಆಲ್ ತ್ರೀ ಆರ್ ಸೇಮ್. ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದೇ, ನೋಡ್ ಅಂದ್ರು ಏಜೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರು ಸೇಮ್. Okay, so we need to connect this slave or agent to the Jenkins controller or Jenkins master to build the job or to run the specific, distribute the loads, distribute the load to different server, also to run specific job on a specific server. Specific job on a specific server ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, suppose if you want to run C and Java both the project, and when we want to use this slave or node configuration, we can run it multiple stages in parallelly like that. So that's what we do with Jenkins. So any questions on this? Anybody has any doubts? Okay, so for that session we'll install Jenkins and we'll understand what is this Jenkins master and what is this Jenkins slave. Any questions? Anybody has any doubts here? Krishna HV, any questions?
No, sir.
Able to understand. ನಾನು ಸಮಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಇವಾಗ ಸ್ಕೆಡ್ಯೂಲಿಂಗ್ ದ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಸ್ಕೆಡ್ಯೂಲಿಂಗ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಕ್ರಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಕ್ರಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ವಿ ವರ್ಕ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ಲಿನಕ್ಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ ಕಾನ್ಫಿಗರೇಷನ್ ವಿ ಡೂ ಇಟ್ ಇನ್ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಅ ಮಿನಿಟ್ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. Okay, so we use some set of plugins in Jenkins. So what are these plugins? Why we use these plugins in Jenkins? Okay, so Jenkins plugins are the tasks in Jenkins. So used to execute the particular task in Jenkins. Okay, so particular task can execute ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ we use some plugins. Okay, plugins ಇಲ್ಲದೆ Jenkins work ಆಗಲ್ಲ. Okay, so we use some set of plugins that we need to install before configuring a job. Okay, so I'll give a definition for plugins. Plugins are the tasks in Jenkins Okay, so used to execute the particular tasks in Jenkins. So that particular task execute ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ we need to be installed with plugins. Okay, so what are those plugins? I'll give a list of plugins. Okay, so what are those plugins? The very first, Gearman plugin. Okay, so what this Gearman plugin will do? So Gearman plugin is basically, it's an high availability of plugin. It will allow us to add other server details in it. Andre, suppose if you are using two slaves, okay, so your Jenkins master, I'll give a, let's remove this. Let me understand Jenkins master and the controller. Okay, so okay, so let's say this is your Jenkins master or the Jenkins controller. Okay, so let's say you have two slaves that you connected to Jenkins master. Okay, this is your slave 1 and this is your slave 2. This is your Jenkins master. Okay, so I'll keep it as S1 and S2, slave 1 and slave 2. You have connected to your slave 1 and slave 2 to the master Jenkins controller with the configuration. Okay, now this Gearman plugin, what this Gearman plugin will do, this Gearman plugin, let's say suppose if you're running a job in slave 1 or in slave 2, suppose if your master suddenly went down, master means where you installed your Jenkins, your master server went down suddenly. Suppose if your master is not even working properly, this slave will act as a master. Okay, so this slave will act, either of these two, one of the slave will act as a master by installing Gearman plugin. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಡನ್ ಆಗಿ ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ಡೌನ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದರ್ಸ್ ಶುಡ್ act as a master, right? We should not get in a downtime when we have an application configuration, right? That we need to think about, right? So Gearman plugin is basically a high availability of plugin. It will allow us to add other server details. Other server details in the sense, suppose if you have server as S1 or the slave 1 or the slave 1, this will act as a master. This will act as a master if the master went down, or server slave 2 will act as a master if your master is went down. Either of these two slaves will act as a master when we configure Gearman plugin. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? Is this clear? Clear for everybody? Okay.
Yes.
So once the Jenkins master goes down, other server or node or slave will act as a master on will or will be in a sync. Okay, so that our Jenkins job will get executed. That is the reason we need to configure Gearman plugin. I'll give a definition. So it is a high availability plugin. High availability of plugin. Okay, so it will allow us to add the other server details in it. Okay, so once the Jenkins master goes down, okay, so once the Jenkins master goes down, the other server or node or slave will act as a master or will be in sync. Okay, clear for this? Clear with this German plugin?
Sir,
Hmm.
if server itself went down,
Hmm.
so then how it will act as this German plugin is act as a master.
Gearman. Gearman.
Sorry, huh?
Hmm.
Gearman will act as a Jenkins master, sir. How it
Yes.
will act if server only went down means, suppose if like considering as a Linux server,
Mm-hmm.
if it is you install this master in that, so
Mm-hmm.
server if it itself is went down means how it will act is
See, master
this.
in the sense, see,
Mhm.
let's say there are three servers here, correct?
Okay.
This is your Jenkins installed master, correct? This is your master. This is server 1, server 2, and server 3, correct?
Okay.
Suppose if one of the server you kept it as installed Jenkins as master, and these two are slaves, right? Suppose your main server is went down, this will act as a master when we configure here. So we'll keep the separate server.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Clear?
Yes.
Yes. So that's the reason we use Gearman plugin. Okay. So this benefit of this Gearman plugin is this only. So when the uh, other or the master went down, the other server will act as a master to execute the tasks. Okay. So any questions? Anybody has any doubts on this? Any doubts? Guys, am I audible? Okay. So anybody has any questions? Okay. So the rest
No,
of the
sir.
plugins we'll discuss tomorrow because I have to go to office today. So let's discuss further plugins in tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow session. So currently we learned about the plugins, that is kernel plugin. So there are some 10 plugins in Jenkins, the most commonly used plugins. We'll discuss that in further session. Okay, and let's configure the Jenkins and let's install the Jenkins and let's see how what this master and what this slave. This master can be a slave. Okay, and we can also keep this master itself as slave. Okay, and we can also keep the other server as slave itself. Okay, clear? Clear for everybody?
ಸರ್ ಈಗ ಆಯ್ತು ಸರ್
Hmm.
ಸರ್ ಗೇರ್ಮನ್ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಅದ್ರ ಟಾಸ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅದು
ಏನು?
ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ಗೆ ನೀವು ಟಾಸ್ಕ್ ಅಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಅದು ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಟಾಸ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಸ್ಲೇವ್
ಯಾವ್ದು ಟಾಸ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್? ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಡೌಟ್?
ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಡೌಟ್ ಈಸ್ slave 1 will or slave 2 will act as a master, sir.
Hmm.
Before master already assigned a task to slave 1 and 2.
Yes.
And
This will
master 1 went
slaves.
down
That's what I told. Slave will do the master task.
along with their task.
Yes, along with their task. Exactly.
Okay, sir. Done. Okay.
So that is the reason we implement a YAML plugin. So if see master ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ configuration ಇರುತ್ತೆ, similar configuration. That is the reason we need to connect this slave to master, right? So once we connected, it will act as a master by installing German plugin. Whatever the task, whatever the configuration which has master, that will also does by slave,
Okay, sir. Done.
including the slave's task.
Okay, sir.
Task in the sense the job execution, deployments, CI and CD.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Sir, one other thing, which means this German plugin we have to install in all slave nodes.
No, no, no. We need to install
If I
in
have-
Jenkins itself. They're enough. So I will show where to install.
Okay, okay. Done.
Jenkins UI. So there is a plugins button. There we need to install.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, means in master we will install Jenkins, right? In slave is another machine. In that also you need to install Jenkins. Or...
No, just we need to connect it. To connect that, we need to install it with the Java because Jenkins works on the Java platform. We no need to install Jenkins in slave. We need to just connect it.
Okay, sir.
So what we do, we create one server. We already created one server, right? So we will
Yes.
install Jenkins in that, and we'll connect master itself as a slave. ಓಕೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟು ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಸರ್ವರ್. ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ಸ್
Okay, sir.
ಸಪೋಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ another slave, you have to create one more server. Okay, install Java in it, and that we can connect to the Jenkins master. That's it, simple.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Any other doubts? Any other questions here?
Sir, consider a scenario. Okay, now master has went down, so slave one, it has taken the master's place. So
Slave
what if?
1 minute. Slave 1 taken as a master.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what if the master once again? What is the condition if the master will come up, sir? Andre,
Master will come up when you clear your memory. Suppose if your master is went down due to the memory exceeds or due to the CPU utilization or the memory reached. Okay, so until you clear those, your master will be in the same position. Once you clear those issues, once you fix that issue, your master will come up, and again it will continue his task,
task? Okay, sir.
and again slave will back to his task.
This task.
This will happen automatically.
Okay.
The configuration which is having in Gearman plugin.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody has any questions? Any doubts? Here. ಏನಾದರೂ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಸಿ ನಾವು ಜಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, okay, so when we are working in Jenkins, we need to understand the before tools like Linux. We use Linux scripts to be executed in Jenkins. We will configure cron tab in Jenkins. We will run the scripts in Jenkins. We use integrate git in Jenkins. There are a lot of things that we do in Jenkins. That is the reason I'm telling you guys all the tools, the significance, benefits of all the tools that we integrate here. Okay, so in Jenkins we will integrate everything in Jenkins itself. So that is the reason we call it as framework, right? So I have told here it's a framework which is used to integrate the changes from development team continuously without manual intervention. We do integrate it. We use Linux in Jenkins, we use scripting in Jenkins, we use Git in Jenkins, and we configure build tools in Jenkins. Suppose if you want to build C, you want to configure CMake. Suppose if you want to build Java, we need to configure Maven, right? So that's what the integration, the framework, the integration work we do it in Jenkins. Clear for this, everybody? Okay, so let's install Jenkins and let's talk about the further plugins in Jenkins. Okay, so there is only one plugin that I have listed over here. There are rest 9 plugins are there. We'll discuss tomorrow. Okay.
Hi, sir.
Yes.
Sir, not doubt, sir. One concern, sir. About QA, sir. 57 means for me here 5:30, sir. So is it possible to like make it like 8:30?
8:30 in morning?
No, sir. Means in evening, sir.
ಸಿ ನಾವು ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಟೈಮ್ ತೊಗೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ರೀ, ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್?
Otherwise, for me, morning is possible, sir.
No, morning I'll have to go to office. Okay. What we do now, we'll extend. You join at 7 o'clock. I'll pick you at last.
Okay, sir. It means it will be 8:30, sir. If I join here 7. Is it okay, sir?
7 you join 7 p.m. IST. I told you I'll pick you at last. Is that fine?
At least 7:30 is okay, sir. I'll join because 5:30 I'll be in
13
office. And
IST.
yeah, 7:30 IST.
In IST ledapa. Now, what is your concern here? You want to take QA at 7:30?
Yeah, that's fine, sir. 7:30. I can join.
So, is it okay at 7:30 p.m. IST?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay, 7:30 for everybody. 7:30 p.m. Okay. Any concern at 7:30? Okay, those who are working, that is fine. But join 7:30 at least. Yes, Dhananjay.
No, sir. No, sorry, by mistake.
Okay. Let's connect QA for 7:30 today. Let's cover all Linux, Git, Jenkins. I mean, whatever I covered today regarding Jenkins and scripting Git as well. Okay.
ಸೇಮ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಸರ್ ಇದೆ?
Same link. QA koda same link.
7:30.
7:30 p.m. Yes, I'll update in the group. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Then we'll connect evening for Q&A and class time will be the same 7 a.m. morning. Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.